starting soon. Oh, story time with Mr. Lamada, where all your dreams come true. Oh, he brings to life your favorite stories with a great big smile. You won't leave lonely, won't you start all the reading? I just can't wait to be hearing story time with Mr. Lamada. He will be starting soon. Oh, story time with Mr. Lamada, where all your dreams come true. Oh, he brings to life your favorite stories with a great big smile. You won't leave lonely, won't you start all the reading? I just can't wait to be hearing.
Good morning, and welcome to Story Time. Thank you so much for joining me on this lovely day that we have. Thank you for being here. I am glad you're here with us. Yes, I hope that you've had a lovely week. Thursday is here, and I hope that your week has been a good one. And of course, wishing you a great rest of the week and indeed a wonderful weekend to come. Thank you so much for joining in. Glad you're here. And of course, today we are all the way out on the Chesapeake Bay. Thank you so much for joining in. Get ready, get comfortable, get cozy, because we do have a good story today. And I must say too, it is a little bit long, so I hope that we can stay the course, or indeed if we need to shift around during then, just be ready for that. Get everything that you need and be comfortable. Thank you so much for joining in. Please let us know where you're joining in from and who is joining in with you. And of course, remember that you can always find Storytime live right here at 7 a.m. Pacific time. You can also join us at 11 a.m. Pacific time for the recording, but you can also join us in our archives at any time or of your convenience. Thank you so much for joining in, and glad that we're here together indeed. Another story awaits us today. I am glad we're here together, and we are reading this one, a special one indeed. Chadwick Forever. This one coming to you from Priscilla Cummings, and illustrations by A.R. Cohen. Thank you so much for joining in, and welcome to Storytime. Priscilla Cummings is out of Annapolis, Maryland, and A.R. Cohen is out of Baltimore. Yes, my former city. Thank you so much for joining in. Former home. Love Baltimore. You gotta love Baltimore. If you've not been, definitely a place to go check out. Thank you so much for joining in, and welcome to Storytime today. I am excited as always to be here with you. Another great story, another great week of stories, enjoying them. Please do send recommendations our way. Let us know what you would like to see here on Storytime, and we'll do our very best to bring them to you. Thank you so much for joining in. And of course, this month we continue to celebrate and honor Pride Month as well. Thank you so much for joining us on Storytime. I am glad you're here. Let us see one more time who is with us this morning. Thank you so much for joining us. Good morning to you. Thank you indeed. Amanda, how are you doing? Good to see you here. And of course, Sarah and Nathan. Oh, thank you. Well, Sarah and Nathan, I appreciate you always, and I hope that you enjoy the recording later. This hug is for you. Thank you so much for joining in. And it is bright and blue out in St. Louis. Thank you so much for joining us from the Lou. Thank you for joining in. I absolutely appreciate you, and I hope that you have a lovely time out there at camp. And of course, Amanda, thank you for being here with us. Hugs to you as well. Thank you so much for being here with us. Good morning, Jeremiah Chiesu. How are you doing today? Thank you for joining in Storytime. Glad you're here. Please remind me where you're joining us from. I am glad you're here. Thank you so much for joining in. And if anybody's joining in with you, let us know who it is so we can say hi to them as well. Thank you so much for joining in, Jeremiah Chiesu. And of course, today we also have Sarah and Nathan and Amanda out from St. Louis this time around. Thank you so much for joining in. Please enjoy the story we have for you today. It is a beautiful one. Chadwick Forever. This one by Priscilla Cummings and illustrations by A.R. Cohen. And of course, we'll be getting started with this one very, very shortly. So sit back, enjoy as we're about to get started with our story. Be comfortable, be cozy. Thank you for being here on Storytime, and to everybody that is joining us later for the recordings. If you're like Sarah and Nathan today joining us later for the recordings, please leave us a message. Let us know you were here so we can say hi to you, and so we know too that you are there with us. Yes, and we send you hugs and love and wish you nothing but the very best wherever you are. Thank you so much for joining in Storytime today. Glad that you are here with us. Thank you indeed. I am glad we're here together. All right, join me on the other side of this short break when we'll be coming for our story today, and this one is called Chadwick Forever. Yes, indeed, coming to you from Priscilla Cohen and Priscilla Cummings and A.R. Cohen. Thank you so much for joining in. Join me on the other side.
Hi, everyone. My name is Amanda Davis. I'm a children's book author, illustrator, and high school art educator. I am the author of 30,000 Stitches, the inspiring story of the National 9/11 flag, illustrated by Sally Warren Comport and published with Worthy Kids # book group. One thing that drew me to writing 30,000 Stitches was the idea that people from all different communities came out to stitch this flag and make it whole again. So I hope that when people read 30,000 Stitches, they remember the power of sharing our stories. When people came out to stitch the flag, they shared their stories, whether about loss or pain or love. We all have stories to tell, and by sharing our stories and listening to one another's stories, we can create a better understanding of each other and create a sense of connection and unity. And this is what creates a more inclusive world. I hope you enjoy your story time with Mr. Lamada. Bye, everybody.
Welcome back. Thank you indeed, Amanda. Yes, we want an inclusive world. We want a world that accepts diversity, a world that is indeed loving to everybody, all neighbors, all our friends. Thank you so much for sharing that wonderful message this morning. And please remember to tell your stories. They are unique, they are beautiful, and only you can tell them the right way. Thank you so much for joining in Storytime. Glad you're here with us. Chadwick Forever. This one from Priscilla Cummings and illustrations by A.R. Cohen. And we're getting started with this one. Save our endangered friends. Oh my goodness. Important work is out for us today. And Jessica, thank you so much for joining in as well. Absolutely appreciate you. Ali Amin in rainy Washington eating a honey and spinach sandwich. Oh my goodness. Now I'm hungry. Ali Amin. I don't know if I'll be able to read this story. Concentrate on the story. Thank you so much for sharing. I hope that snack, you enjoy it. And of course, I hope that it goes down well. I'm pretty sure it'll be going down well with this story that we have for you today. Thank you so much for joining in and for sharing. All right, here we go. Chadwick Forever. This one from Priscilla Cummings and A.R. Cohen. And it is called Chadwick Forever. Save our endangered friends. All right, here we go. What's happening there? Oops, still had my bookmark in there. Chadwick Forever. This one coming to you from Priscilla Cummings and A.R. Cohen, and we're reading it with permission of the publishers, SCHIFFER Kids. A big thank you to them for allowing us to share this wonderful book right here on Storytime today. There we go. Chadwick Forever by Priscilla Cummings, illustrations by A.R. Cohen, and published and read with permission of SCHIFFER Kids. Thank you indeed for allowing us to share this lovely book right here on Storytime. All right. Who's crying? Chadwick asked as he and Esmeralda peeked above the calm waters of Shady Creek and gazed toward the shore. Bernie the seagull cocked his head to the wind. Sounds like it's coming from that tree. The crying grew louder and louder until all at once it stopped. From out of a dark hole halfway up an old oak tree, objects began flying out into the air. What could be happening? What in the world is going on? Bernie wondered aloud. Esmeralda sighed. I knew something would happen just when we were going to make our big announcement. That can wait, Chadwick said. No one even knows we're back from our honeymoon yet. Crackety crack, boom! Branches snapped off the tree as still more objects fell to the ground. Oh my. Chadwick turned to Bernie. You'd better fly in and take a look. Cautiously, Bernie circled the tall oak several times, trying to be sure, but he thought he saw a small rocking chair sail into the bushes far below. Maybe it was. Oh my goodness, what is happening? What is all that racket? Now, wait a minute, Bernie thought as he held out his wings and drifted in for a closer look. Wasn't this Hester's oak? Could it be that the tree's resident squirrel was just doing a bit of vigorous cleaning? After all, Hester was known for her tidiness. Just then, a large saucepan was held out of the hole. Bernie veered to one side as it whizzed past him and fell, clanking and clanking through the limbs down below. Hester, watch out, he squawked. You nearly hit me. You nearly binned me in the head with that pot. Although he didn't normally land in trees, Bernie settled on a sturdy branch and, after ducking one more to avoid a flying footstool, picked his way over the tree's rough bark. Hester, hold it, he demanded. Soft whimpering came from within the tree. Bernie paused, his anger melting at once into concern. Hester, what's wrong? Oh. When there was no answer, Bernie peeked inside the front door to see the squirrel standing quietly, her eyes moist with tears. In her front paws, she held a tray with an acorn tea set. Mother gave me these dishes, she sniffed. It was a housewarming gift when I moved into this tree. I remember, Bernie said softly, his eyes opening wide at the sight of Hester's empty apartment. Only a straw rag remained, rolled up and propped against a set of empty shelves, and tin cans filled with nuts and seeds. This is next to go, said Hester, as she prepared to heave the tea set out of the front door. Bernie lifted his wings to stop her. Now, wait a minute. What's going on here? I am leaving, Hester explained bitterly. My kind won't be around much longer, so I am returning to my birthplace. Oh, I'm returning to my birthplace, a loblolly pine at the refuge, to spend my remaining days. I thought that at the very least I could throw my belongings below for some needy field mouse. Bernie didn't budge, and he didn't get it. What's going on, my friend? Oh. What do you think is going on with Hester? What are you talking about? The last of your kind? There are a million squirrels like you running all over the place. Hester's eyes flashed. There are a million gray squirrels all over the place, she corrected him. But there are not a million Delmarva Peninsula fox squirrels. That's part of the problem. No one knows the difference. And now I may be the only one left. Oh. Who says? Bernie demanded. Hester put the tea set down and scooped up a large book from the floor. See for yourself, she said. Reluctantly, Bernie took the book and studied the title. He couldn't read very well and wished Chadwick were there to help him with the big words. Oh. Hester grew impatient. Endangered wildlife of the Chesapeake Bay, she read loud. Where'd you find this book? Bernie asked. What does it matter where I found it? What's important is that it's all about us poor creatures who may disappear forever, or because of something man has done. Snatching the book back, she flipped through the pages. Page 23. See, there I am, Delmarva Fox Squirrel. It was Hester, all right. Funny, Bernie thought, but he had never noticed how different she was from the other squirrels. Much bigger, almost as big as a cat. Tail a tad bushier, lots of white on the paws and tummy. Hester waited, tapping her foot. Well, golly, I don't know what all this means, but surely there's something we can do to help. I hope so. Hester shook her head and picked up the tea set again. I don't think so. Animals can't fight back. What's done is done. Oh. Bernie was firm. At least talk to Chadwick. Hester twitched her tail. All right, she finally agreed. But I'm telling you, it won't do any good. Oh. I hope Chadwick can help. And hi, Marietta. At first, Chadwick was befuddled. He had never heard of being endangered before, and the whole idea overwhelmed him. He couldn't imagine a world without animals, or worse, a bay without crabs. He decided to call a meeting. 2 notices went up immediately. One scratched on the sandbar, one posted behind the counter at Sid and Sal's famous Channel Marker diner. Everyone had begun to gather when Bag-Eyed Benny shot through the water, screaming, "Monster! Monster on the sandbar!" The crabs zoomed down to deep water and the birds scattered. In seconds, Shady Creek was deserted. Still out of breath from the fast swim, the crabs resurfaced near a bellbore out of the bay. One by one, the birds showed up too, some of them landing on the buoy, and some floating nearby in the water. What kind of monster was it? Pitcher Pete asked. Bug-Eyed Bernie shook his head. I can't describe it, Pete. Chadwick suspected the monster was nothing more than the little boy who came down to the creek now and then to tease the crabs by dropping smelly old chicken necks in the water. This was the monster wearing a baseball cap. Chadwick. Was this monster wearing a baseball cap? Chadwick asked. Bug-Eyed Benny turned angrily. It wasn't the boy, he snapped. Chadwick remained calm. He knew Bug-Eyed Benny had a tendency to exaggerate. Well, was it a big monster or a little monster? Bug-Eyed Benny frowned and shrugged. I don't know. I didn't see it. Mouths, bills, and beaks dropped open. The animals began to suspect it was a false alarm. But I didn't make it up, Bug-Eyed Bernie exclaimed. There really was a monster. I saw his tracks all over the sandbar. There were tracks like you've never seen before, long and squiggly and ugly. Whatever it was slithered right through the notice about our meeting. What could it be? Oh. But I'm glad the animals are coming together. Hopefully they come up with a plan. Just then, the buoy rocked to one side and its bell made a loud clang. It's an omen, said Matilda as she struggled to keep her balance on the buoy. Those marks are a warning. Something bad is about to happen. Mrs. Mallard shuddered. Matilda's right. Maybe we shouldn't deal with this problem of endangered animals. Several others nodded in agreement. Bunch of sissies, Chadwick mumbled. Guess I will have to find out who messed up our sign before anyone could stop him. He slipped sideways beneath the surface and swam off. Come back, Esmeralda screamed. In one lightning-quick move, Baron Van Heron stretched out his long neck and plucked Chadwick out of the water. For the briefest moment, the crab dangled by one leg above the crowd before being daintily dropped back. The Baron coughed and cleared his throat. One mustn't rush to be courageous for causes that may be outrageous. Bernie flew to Chadwick's side. The Baron's right, he said. Don't do anything rush. We can't afford to lose you. Chadwick was disgusted. Nevertheless, he agreed not to try anything anymore. Oh. What can the animals do? This is a really hard situation. Overnight, a high tide washed away the eerie tracks, and the next day, all the animals returned to Shady Creek. There was no more talk of bad omens or mysterious monsters. Chadwick rescheduled the meeting, and everyone gathered at sunset. Pleased with the turnout, Chadwick chuckled as he watched Hector Spectre, the jellyfish blob this way and that, trying to decide on the best position. Don't forget, Matilda bent to whisper. You and Esmeralda said you had something exciting to tell us too. Esmeralda beamed at Matilda, and the two giggled. Later, Chadwick said firmly, we need to talk about Hester's problem first. Yes, indeed. Oh, I apologize. I'm getting a phone call right now. Sorry about that. We need to talk about Hester's problem first. Matilda straightened up and adjusted her glasses. If you ask me, Hester brought this whole mess on herself. She begs for trouble by going out of those fields every day. She ought to stick to the trees like the other squirrels. But she's different, Bernie argued. She showed me in a book. She's a Del something squirrel. They get a lot of food from the fields. A big cornfield, a stash of soybeans. That's what she loves. But man keeps building houses in the fields, and Hester has less and less to eat. Oh. Not only that, Bernie added, but man is also cutting down the big trees that Hester likes to live in. Matilda rolled her near-sighted eyes. Well, I don't know why she can't stick to smaller trees and eat nuts just because she's a Del something squirrel. Shh, here she comes now, Chadwick said. A hush fell over the group as Hester approached quietly. She made her way down to the water's edge, where she sat on her hunches and shook out her magnificent tail. She wore a freshly pressed yellow apron and pulled from one of its front pockets a small notebook. I hope you don't mind, she said without looking up. I am keeping a journal of my last days. Oh, Hester, I hope there's a solution here. Silence followed, and all heads turned to Chadwick, who scratched behind his eye stalks with the tip of one claw. First things first, I guess. Is anyone else on this so-called endangered list? Don't be shy now, Chadwick urged. Indeed, speak up. There is no shame. It's man again. It's him we blame. The Baron had his say and then stepped back. A flurry of bubbles announced that Belly Jeans, the flounder, wished to speak. My friends, Deck the fish is on that list. He's a Maryland darter. The piping plover is on that list too, said Oswald, the great blue heron, as he nodded toward the shy gray bird at his feet. She flew all the way in from seashore for this meeting. When the plover didn't speak, Oswald referred to his bird book. It says here that jeeps and trucks on the beach are scaring the little bird away. That's right. The little piping plover piped up. I couldn't stay on my nest with all that traffic. Oh, man. Yes, indeed. The beach can be a dangerous place, agreed two beetles, who stood high on their long, dainty legs. We're Puritan tiger beetles, and we're endangered too. The tiger beetles were kind of cute, despite their fearsome name. When they spoke, their thin, sweet voices chimed in unison. Can someone please help us? Just then, Louis, an old turtle, who had been living in Shady Creek for years, lumbered forward. Chadwick inched back, pulling Esmeralda with him. Chadwick had known Louis to actually eat a crab or two when his appetite built up, and he wasn't about to become a snack for the old terrapin. Bernie wasn't afraid, though. "You're not endangered, are you?" he asked. "Not yet," Louis answered in a deep baritone voice, "but I may be soon. Did you know that 49 terrapins drowned last year after getting caught in a single crab pot?" Louis went on. "We are running out of the sandy beaches too, and we need sandy beaches to lay our eggs." "So do we," the tiger beetles explained, surprised that they had anything in common with a big old turtle like Louis. This was serious, Chadwick thought. Disappearing beaches, vanishing forests. He turned to Deck, the dada. "What's your problem?" The little fish looked up, wide-eyed and innocent. "I just need clean water," he said. Oh, we need clean water indeed. Oh my goodness, there's a lot in there. But is thinking, what can we do to help our friends? It soon became obvious that the problem was widespread. Oh yes. Salamanders, woodpeckers, peregrine falcons, even a bald eagle showed up at the meeting. Each had a different story to tell. Things were getting complicated. Deep inside, Chadwick worried that there wasn't a thing any of them could do. We won't come to any conclusion, thought Chadwick. "We won't come to any conclusion tonight," Chadwick said. "So I suggest we continue this meeting another time. But before you leave, Sid and Sal have some refreshments." "It's the least we could do," Sal volunteered. "We ospreys were on that endangered list ourselves once." Spying the platters heaped with steaming seaweed cakes and swamp muffins, the crowd surged forward. Chadwick scattered to the front and held up both claws. "Wait," he shouted. "Esmeralda and I have something to announce first." Esmeralda blushed, then blurted out, "We are parents now. In early June, I spawned my first mass of eggs." A cheer went up. Matilda was all aflutter with the good news. I knew it. How many? Oh, I do hope you name one for me." The question caught Esmeralda off guard. "How many?" she murmured to herself. "Why, I don't know exactly, but 2 million, I guess." A loud gasp filled the air. "Oh my," Matilda exclaimed, lifting a handkerchief to her bill. For a moment, every creature on the sandbar envisioned a horde of little crabs overrunning the creek, bending the reeds, hiding in the marsh grass, staring up the muddy bottom, eating everything in sight. Still, Chadwick and Esmeralda were very special, and there was not a bird, beast, or fish among them who would not welcome the new family, however large it was. Matilda clashed her hanky. "Well," she said shakily, "we are the little crabby darlings." "Where are the little crabby darlings?" Chadwick and Esmeralda looked at each other and shrugged. We don't know exactly," Esmeralda said, matter-of-factly. "Last time we saw them was a couple of months ago, down at the mouth of the bay." She smiled, remembering. "They were so beautiful, so perfect then. I hope they've hatched and molted into handsome jimmies and lovely little sooks by now." "That's crab talk for boys and girls," Bernie explained with a chuckle. No one else was laughing, especially not mothers like Mrs. Mallard, who sat on her eggs for weeks. "What? You abandoned your babies? You don't even know how many?" Whoa. Bernie chuckled again. You people, you friends, no, that's the way crabs do it. And don't worry, there won't be any 2 million crabby darlings swimming up the creek. Most of them have probably already been eaten, slept up by some gluttonous eel for dessert. Heck, probably half of them got washed out to the sea. Right, Chad? Chadwick nodded weakly, and Esmeralda paled. Hey, I'm not saying some won't make it, Bernie added quickly. Why, little Chadwick Jr. is probably wiping those waves and riding that tide home to Shady Creek right now. Yes, that's right, Chadwick hurriedly agreed, fearful that Esmeralda might faint. We expect them soon, maybe even on tomorrow's first incoming tide. Aww. No one knew quite what to say. Hester put away her notebook and broke the silence. Well, I think it's wonderful, she said. We all do things differently. Congratulations, Chadwick and Esmeralda. I will never know your happiness, for I shall never have a handsome husband or a loving family. But you, your little ones, why, you will always know that some tiny bit of you, like the smallest star in the sky, shines on and on for generations to come. Oh my. Hey, I like that, Bernie whooped. Chadwick forever. A toast to the new parents, Dr. Mallard said, lifting a nutshell full of blackberry juice. Hear, hear, a heron called out as everyone showered the crabs with best wishes and plunged into food. No one noticed that Hester left without even taking a bite to eat. Aw, poor Hester. During the night, a storm came through. The sound of raindrops hitting the oak's big leaves made me sad. It was almost as though the tree were crying for me. Oh, how I shall miss it here. Still, I have made up my mind to go. With that, Hester closed her journal and placed it inside a bandana with a small pile of acorns. At dawn, when the first dim fingers of light poked their way through the gray mist over Shady Creek, she set off on her journey to the refuge. She was far away by the time the others woke up, and far, far away by the time the mysterious tracks were spotted again on the sandbar. She would never know just how much fear and worry spread through Shady Creek that day, not because there was an unknown monster lurking around, but because in early afternoon, the animals discovered that Hester had left. Aww. The first day is over. How exhausted I am. Have found a bed for the night in a wild cherry tree. I am lonely without my friends, nearly in the creek. Must try to sleep. Tomorrow I have to find a way across the river. For a squirrel, the only way across the Treadavon River was to sneak aboard the ferry that ran from Bellevue to Oxford. Hester and her mother had done it once many years ago. Now Hester would have to do it by herself. All afternoon, Hester watched from beneath a bush on the riverbank. When the ferry pulled into Bellevue, she picked up her bundle and held it close. She could feel her heart pounding. 2 cars, a truck waited in line for the ferry. When their engine started, Hester scampered unnoticed to the loading dock and hid behind a pile of rope. 1 car rumbled onto the ferry. Then the other rode aboard and jerked to a stop. Hester peered over the edge of the dock at the dark river, water swirling below. Her tail twitched rapidly. She knew it was time to make her move. A rusty pickup truck rattled past. Now Hester had told herself, but her legs froze. Chains rattled. A man's voice called out the orders. The vehicles were in place and the ferry's big propellers whirled, cheering the water into a froth. Chug, 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 chug. The ferry moved forward. Hester would have to leap across the water now if she wanted to get aboard. Don't do it! A voice screeched from above. Who could it be? Too late. Hester was in the air, Reaching with her front paws for the edge of the ferry, she missed it by a hair. As she plunged into the white rushing water behind the ferry, Bernie squawked and circled above. Finally, Hester bobbed to the surface, gasped for breath, and paddling frantically with her tiny paws to keep afloat. Bernie's eyes darted around. He spied a large branch in the water and dove down to pull it her way. Hester grabbed on. "Don't let go," Bernie shouted. The strong, swift current carried the branch downriver. Already weak, Hester knew she couldn't hold on for very long. Oh my. I hope more help comes soon. I'm glad Bernie is there. Bernie swooped low to the water and tugged at the branch with his beak, coaxing it toward shore. "Oh, help me," Hester moaned. Luck was with them. The branch caught the edge of a fallen tree near the riverbank and stopped. Exhausted and drenched, Hester dragged herself ashore and collapsed in the brown mud. Whew! Within moments, Dr. Mallard arrived, carrying his black medical bag under the wing. Hester was still unconscious. The doctor wrapped her in a blanket, and 2 blue herons flew her home in a sling. When I awoke, I was back in my own apartment, where all my furniture had been put back just the way I had it. There was even a pot of tea, warmed and waiting, and my journal, which Bernie found. My dear friends have taught me one thing. I'm going to stop worrying about tomorrow and enjoy the life I have today. This is where my heart is. I shall never leave Shady Creek again. Oh. Hester closed her notebook just as Bernie stuck his head in the doorway. "Hester, come quick! There's trouble on the sandbar. They've cornered the monster who's been leaving those ugly tracks." "You don't say," Hester exclaimed, snatching ashore and scampering out of the door. A small crowd had gathered, and Chadwick's voice could be heard. "Stop sniveling," he ordered. "No one's going to hurt you. We just want to know who you are." At first, Hester thought Chadwick was talking to Ovo the oyster, but when the mysterious shell spoke, its voice was high and smooth, like that of a young child. "I am a mussel," the shell said, "a dwarf wedge mussel. I don't mean anyone harm, and I am sorry I messed up your sign with my tracks, but I heard about your meeting and I wanted to come. I am endangered too, you see. The pollution is just killing me." A dwarf wedge mussel. Bernie had to stifle a laugh. "You've got to be kidding." "He's not kidding," said the rather deep and staring voice from the back of the crowd. "Why would he joke about something as serious as who he is?" A large stately squirrel in a top hat stood behind them on the sandbar. "And who are you?" Bernie demanded. Who are you indeed? Who is this other character coming in? "The name is Harrison," the squirrel said as he touched his hat with the tip of his elegant walk stick and bowed ever so slightly. "I am looking for someone." Hester peeked out from behind Baron Van Heron, intrigued by the handsome stranger. "Just who are you looking for?" Chadwick asked. Harrison folded his white front paws on top of his walking stick. "I won't know until I find her," he said. "You see, I am looking for a wife, but the search has been long and hard because there aren't many of my kind left in these parts." "Your kind?" Matilda looked down her bill at the squirrel. "I am a Delmarva folk squirrel?" Hester asked. "Yes, that's it. My good woman, however did you know?" "Well, one had to guess that what was happening. It was love at first sight. At the twitch of tails. In paw, the two squirrels headed at once to Hester's tree for tea. After they left, Chadwick went over to the tiny mussel and assured him he was welcome in Shady Creek. I just won't promise you that things will get any better here, he said. It's up to the people to stop building on our fields, cutting down trees and ruining beaches. It's up to them to keep the water clean. The mussel said he understood. I guess we just have to hope that the people will help, right? We hope so. Hope so indeed. Chadwick nodded and tried to smile. Before long, night came again to Shady Creek, and the animals dispersed, some returning underwater, some headed into the marsh. The soft glow of candlelight and the sound of gentle laughter came from Hester's apartment. Only Chadwick and Esmeralda remained at the sandbar in the moonlight, watching as an incoming tide lapped at the sand around them. They were happy for Hester, yet sad for the others whose future was unknown. They felt a little sorry for themselves too, for they had hoped that on this night they would be reunited with their own little ones. Yet in their hearts, they knew, as all the animals knew, that this was the way of life. One day happiness, one day sorrow. Life went on regardless. Already Esmeralda was planning to spawn a new mass of eggs. It will be all right, you will see, Chadwick said, putting his claw around Esmeralda. She frowned at him. Shh, I hear something. What could it be? What could it be indeed? Oh. Chadwick listened. A breeze rustled in the nearby marsh, grass carrying with it bursts of faint, high-pitched sounds. Mommy, 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 daddy, daddy, daddy. Esmeralda turned to Chadwick. The children, she exclaimed. The children are here. They are here. Sure enough, the little crabs had arrived, hungry and tired with the tide. With open claws, Chadwick and Esmeralda scooped up their new family, while all the other birds and animals rushed back to the sandbar to see what all the commotion was about. The piping plover piped a happy song. Esmeralda beamed proudly, and Chadwick found he had to wipe away a tear of joy. Hester couldn't wait to get back to her journal that night. After all the baby crabs arrived, Harrison and I looked up into the night sky. Such a clear night. There must have been a million stars out. It made me feel warm inside to think that maybe there really was a tiny bright light up there, shining forever for each and every one of us. Maybe indeed. I love that. This one is in cursive, so it's a little harder to see, but I'll read it one more time. There must have been a million stars out. It made me feel warm inside to think that there really was maybe a tiny bright light up there, shining forever for each and every one of us. The end. Thank you so much for joining in Storytime today, and of course too for sticking around. I did say the book was a little bit long. Maybe I should have had it in 2 installments, but it is such a beautiful book, such a wonderful message in here for all of us indeed. And the animals do say in there too, it is up to the humans, it is up to us to take care of these animals, to take care of these environments. We can't just keep encroaching on their land, encroaching on their spaces, and where do we expect them to go? And so I know that there are big things that we can do, big things that we can look at, like donating to certain organizations, working in certain places, but also there's little things that we can do, just like don't throw your trash out carelessly, put it where it's supposed to be, put it in designated places so it doesn't end up in the sea, right? Let's make sure that if we have things that we need to dispose of, let's dispose of them in the right way. We can do little things that will help towards that cause, right? So just think about that as we're going through that. It doesn't have to be the big steps to start with. It's little by little, one step at a time, we can do it. And so let us just think of our communities, think in our spaces, what is it that we can do? It's not only animals that are on water, it's animals in many different spaces that we are affecting as humans. And indeed, we need to think about this and check what we're doing and see what we can do better. Thank you so much for joining in Storytime today. Absolutely appreciate you, and I hope that you enjoyed this book. Chadwick, Forever, message of hope, but also indeed hits home with the true message, the big message of what is happening to our environments and all the other creatures that we share that with. Thank you so much for being here. Let us see. I see a lot of messages coming in, and let us just see one more time who is with us. And yes, enjoying that message. Thank you so much for joining in Storytime. One more time, good morning to you, Ali Amin, from out in rainy Washington, eating a honey and spinach sandwich. I'm sure by this time it's gone, but I hope it was delicious, and I hope you enjoyed that story too. Thank you so much for joining in. Marietta, thank you. And Henry, of course, always sending you love, and glad that you're back at school and glad that you're feeling better to be back at school indeed. Thank you so much for joining in. Glad you're here, and hopefully you can catch this later on. Thank you indeed. Good morning to you. How are you doing? Jemison, Alicia, Lindley, and April. Good to see you. Has your summer break started yet? We've started out here in Oakland. I hope that you're well down in Orange County. Thank you so much for joining in. Absolutely appreciate you. Alicia, Jemison, Lindley, and of course April. Thank you so much for joining us today. Yes, indeed, sending you hugs and good vibes. Thank you for being here. Yes, indeed, Marietta says such a great message, written in lovely kid-friendly way. Love the illustrations. Absolutely, I couldn't agree with you more. Thank you so much for sharing that. It is indeed beautifully written, and indeed powerful message written in a way that every kid hopefully will understand out there. And of course, we're there too as adults to share in these messages, talk about these issues, and indeed encourage the next generation in what to do better than we've done. Absolutely. Thank you so much for joining in. Appreciate you. And April and the team, you're saying wonderful message. It is indeed a wonderful message, powerful message indeed. And I hope that today this has made us think indeed. And as we go out, let us remember what we are leaving. What is our footprint? What is our mark, right? As we leave, as we are moving on in this world. So let us please remember that we have a role to play, and it doesn't have to be big things like we said. Tiny steps can be taken. Thank you so much for joining in Storytime. Thank you indeed for lasting that long with the book that we had today. It is a long book, but a wonderful story indeed. And thank you indeed to SCHIFFER Kids for allowing us to read this wonderful book here on Storytime. Chadwick, Forever. And this one is written by Priscilla Cummings and illustrations by A.R. Cohen. Save our endangered friends. Yes, what can we do? Thank you indeed for joining in Storytime. Absolutely appreciate you and glad you are here with me. I will see you again tomorrow for more story time. Please join me tomorrow as we are back with another exciting book, and this one coming back to story time after almost 2 years, and this one is called Mabel, a Mermaid Fable. Join me for this one and get to enjoy it. And it is written and illustrated by Robert Watkins. I love that name, Robert Watkins. Thank you so much for joining in, and we'll be reading that one with permission of Chronicle Books of San Francisco. Friends, this has been story time for today. Hugs, hugs, hugs. Thank you for helping, just make my heart full this morning. I hope that your heart is better for this story that we read, and indeed for the time that we've spent together. Yes, that little light that Hester talks about, may it continue shining for each and every one of you, for each and every one of us. Much appreciations. Love, love, love. And I will see you again tomorrow for more story time. Bye-bye.
Story time with Mr. Lamada. He will be starting soon. Oh, story time with Mr. Lamada, where all your dreams come true. Oh, he brings to life your favorite stories with a great big smile. You won't leave lonely. Won't you start all the reading? I just can't wait to be hearing Story time with Mr. Lamada. He will be starting soon. Oh, story time with Mr. Lamada, where all your dreams come true. Oh, he brings to life your favorite stories with a great big smile. You won't leave lonely, won't you start all the reading? I just can't wait to be here. You won't live lonely, won't you start all the reading? We just can't wait to be hearing. Brings to life your favorite stories with a great big smile. You won't live lonely, won't you start all the reading? We just can't wait to be